Count Midnight here with the Music Box Theater for the Movie Massacre 7 24-hour horror movie film festival. We're here with director Herschell Lewis. Real honor to meet you tonight.
I'm very pleased to be here. I'm having a very good time.
Great. How do you like seeing your movies up on the screen?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen any of these things in an actual theater setting. So it's like having a missing child come home.
Well, first off, also let me congratulate you on your fine musical performance of the theme song from 2000 Maniacs.
Oh, I love it. Whenever somebody says, will you sing the theme from 2000 Maniacs, my answer is, you bet I will.
Well, great. Now let me ask you this question. You, some of your movies like Blood Feast, which sort of put you on the map, and 2000 Maniacs, they're sort of all about the South, right? And a lot of your movies were shown in the South, but
yes, that was heavy territory for us.
Yeah, and so, but you're not from the South. You're from Pittsburgh, and then around here, right?
You know too much about me.
Well,
I was born in Pittsburgh and I grew up here, but I now live in Florida, so I'm a Southerner.
You're a Southerner.
Transplanted, like many are.
Now, would you consider yourself to be a Tea Party member or a worm?
I wish I were a worm in their party.
Yeah.
Politics is somewhat beyond me in these days.
Oh, okay. But so why do you think your movies appealed to the folks in the South? You put them in the drive-ins there? And
well, it gives them a feeling of power, but the rationale behind movies such as 2000 Maniacs, it didn't apply to Blood Feast at all. That could be anywhere. 2000 Maniacs was especially constructed for theaters south of the Mason-Dixon line. And it turned out that from the viewpoint of, again, of distribution, those were very heavy territories for us. At the time we made Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs and Color Me Blood Red and A Taste of Blood, the independent film producer had no outlet other than theaters. Now, how does one compete in the theaters against major company product? Answer, you show something, one, that either startles the audience, or two, is congruent with what they themselves feel, either politically or religiously or whatever. And that was the nature of these movies.
And how was it that you just happened to go in that direction?
An accident of, yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, and again, this is telling a story out of school.
Okay.
We made Blood Feast, which is now regarded as the first of what we now call splatter films. We just call them gory movies.
Right.
And had no notion ever that this movie was going to be the commercial success that it was. Because it was totally experimental. Nobody had ever made anything like that before. I spent as little money as I possibly could, and we were using department store mannequins just stuffed with glop. And that the movie took off the way it did, I said to my partner, Dave Friedman, what if we made a good one? And the result of that was 2000 Maniacs, which to this day it's my favorite of all the movies I've made.
I think mine too, yeah.
Oh, good, you're a man of taste.
Yes, absolutely. Now let me ask you this question. So you made a few other movies after that, and then for a long stretch, I think from around the time of The Wizard of Gore, which is currently being shown, you didn't make any movies. Why was that?
The reason was that I felt the string had run out. Here's what happened. And I appreciate the question, by the way. For some time, I had the entire genre of these movies to myself. But there are no secrets in the movie business. Example, today, a movie opens on Friday. By Sunday midday, they know if this movie's going to be a hit or a flop. And it's on the news Sunday evening. I found, once word got out, here's this guy with no talent, no cast, no crew, no real plot line to stand, and look at the money his movies are making. I can do better than that. Now, when other people in the independent world said that, I didn't care. But when the major film companies began to say that, I felt it was time to get out. Playing time in theaters was drying up. And this is before we had not just DVDs, we didn't have video cassettes. The independent made it in the theaters or not at all. And that was the reason behind my decision. I had another career which was beginning to flourish in the world of marketing. And so I simply shifted into that, saying I had a great time, too bad it's over. It's like the fellow who makes horse wagons and buggies after the automobile came into power.
Sam, what major studio movies do you think competed or started following your lead?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but
You were saying you got out of it because some of the
they saw the movie. Here, suppose I make a movie for, let's say, $500,000, which I've never done. I've never had that kind of money. And you are a major company. You say, wait a minute. This guy has, one, no budget. He has no cast of any names at all. He has no implicit distribution. We have all three. So if we can make this same kind of movie of the type he is making, our income from that is guaranteed, which it is not true. It's not true at all of other kinds of movies. At that time, it was implicit in this kind of movie that it would get played in theaters. So they had resources I didn't have, and they knew it. And when word got out of what business we were doing, they felt they had to get in.
And did you have to pass any of your movies by the movie censors?
Oh my God, yes. Okay. That was before we had the MPAA ratings. Okay. So in every territory, there was an individual censor board. And what would happen sometimes, it happened in Los Angeles as a matter of fact, one area would have heavy censorship. Adjacent to it, just across the street, there would be none. And I could envision, in fact, I was told stories of this type, two people talking about the movie. And one said, gee, what a horrible, it was about 58 minutes of just bad conversation. And the other guy says, no, what are you talking about? It's a much longer movie. And didn't you see that scene where they pull out the girl's tongue? No, there's no such scene in that movie. And they had seen literally the same movie, but one had been horribly cut and the other was simply horribly shot.
Okay, gotcha. Now let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Did your movies play better indoors or on drive-in?
Drive-ins were our territory.
Yeah.
We had a substantial playoff in indoor theaters, but never first-run type theaters. We weren't about to open at Radio City Music Hall. Drive-ins, this was grist for their mill, and I'll tell you another reason why. You come in with a big movie, and you say to the drive-in, or even for that matter, to the conventional hardtop theater owner, here's our deal. First week we get 90%, you get 10% of box office gross. Then for the next 2 weeks it's 50-50. And after that, if we hold over, we'll go down to 40%. I come in with my piece of junk, and I say, well, look here, book us for 1 week. 35% to us, 65% to you. If you want to hold it a second week, 25% for us, 75% for you. The theater owner, in his wisdom, says, if I play to a half-empty house, I'll make more money than I would with a major company blockbuster. And it is, after we call it the movie business, but a lot of people don't realize it's a business. And that's how we got played.
So you must have some passion for it, though. So let me ask you this question. You said you never made a movie or had a budget of $500,000. So if you had $500,000 at that time or this time, would you make a $500,000 movie, or would you go somewhere and be on the beach?
Well, oh no, making movies, it's like having malaria. You think you're over it, and it lurks in the bloodstream. You can't get rid of it. And tonight, if someone came up to me and said, you got a script? Yeah, I've got a script. Let's produce it. I'd say, when do you want to start? So, okay. Oh yes, that's the love of my life.
So it's in your blood.
It's in my blood, or what's left of my blood.
You gonna make anything soon?
Well, I just finished one. It's called The Uh-Oh Show.
The Uh-Oh Show, okay.
And I'm sitting on a script which is called Mr. Bruce and the Gore Machine, and I'm just waiting for a producer to show up. Now, what I've done with The Uh-Oh Show, I've tried, after all these years when I haven't been making movies, and I feel that these films have become derivative. You feel you're watching the same movie over and over and over again. With The Uh-Oh Show, I've tried to marry the conventional splatter film, we call it, with outrageous humor, so the audience, whether they're in their bedroom or in a theater, will know immediately the whole thing's a big joke. And that may attract people who normally would not go to see one of these movies. Example, In a typical splatter movie, if I chop your arm off with a radial saw, you will die of both shock and blood loss. Not in the uh-oh show. You're irritated. And as you're standing there with this severed arm in your other hand, this lunatic master of ceremonies, it's a quiz show. He says, all right, he says, you want to come back next week and try again? You can still get all those prizes. And this pretty girl says, well, will you put it? Yeah, we'll get your arm back on there. She says, okay, I'll come back next week. Now, she says this. She's not dying. The next thing you see is a fellow in a filthy workman's outfit with a hammer and a great big spike, and he's nailing this shriveled black arm onto her shoulder. And she is standing there, annoyed. She says, wait a minute. He says, that's not my arm, and you're putting it on backward. He says, hey, lady, this ain't the Mayo Clinic. I'm figuring there that the typical theater goer or the typical guy who rents a DVD will know at once that this is not a derivative movie.
And you're not giving away anything here, right? That's not a spoiler, is it?
No. The whole movie is that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And is that going to be released in the United States?
It's just now being released.
Okay.
Yeah, just as I sit here, I think we're in the second week with a distributor whom I don't much care for personally, but that's of no consequence either. It's a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're all about the business.
I'm all about the business.
Great. And let me ask you this question. Speaking of business, do you have a website for your business?
I have a website for myself, yes. It's called www.herschelgordonlewis.com. Now, that's primarily for my other business. As you may know, I'm in the world of marketing, I have some fame. In the world of movies, I have notoriety. But that was originally conceived when I thought I was never again going to make another movie, which shows how cloudy the crystal ball can be.
Well, which is better, fame or notoriety?
Fame is better from the viewpoint of income. Notoriety is better from the viewpoint of ego.
Okay. Your ego's doing pretty good tonight, then.
Oh, thank you. I'm having a very good time here.
Well, great. Well, the Massacre is a wonderful time. This is the 7th one. We've been to all 7 of them so far. And, well, hopefully there's an 8th. But let me ask you this question. When you made your movies, what type of equipment are you using? Like primarily a 16 millimeter?
No, we shot it only in 35 millimeter.
35, okay.
Up until the new one. The new one was shot digitally on those great big new cameras called RED, R-E-D.
Okay.
But until this movie, everything was 35 millimeter color.
So what do you find having that perspective of being in days when you only had film and now when you have a lot of choice, and some directors still use film, but most everybody's gone to digital, including the RED camera?
My feeling is that the days of actual film, as is true in little still cameras, look at what's happened to Kodak as a company. Those days are going into eclipse. And already in a great number of theaters, instead of some fella coming in on Friday with 2 new cans of film and picking up the old ones, the projectionist hits a delete button. And there goes this week's movie. And he hits enter. And down from a satellite comes next week's movie. And when we shot the uh-oh show, to make sure that I wasn't making a mechanical error by thinking digitally, we shot a couple of scenes, both with the RED cameras and with a Panavision 35 millimeter camera, and projected them not onto somebody's monitor, but onto an actual theater screen. Everybody who looked at that test agreed the digital image looked better. It was sharper, it was clearer, and certainly, from my point of view, a lot less expensive, because you're not blowing film. See, I used to say that 2 words you'd never hear on my set: take 2. And that was because of the cost of film. That doesn't apply when you're shooting digitally. Piece of tape, you reuse it, so what?
Did that mean that some of your films have mistakes in them?
Every one of my films has mistakes in them.
Any very notable that you'd like to share?
Well, example, Blood Feast. The police captain was played by a fellow who was on the crew. The guy who was supposed to play the police captain's role didn't show up. Now, with what I was paying actors, it was no surprise. So I didn't regard that as something that required gigantic acting talent. So we have a scene in which he walks into this Fuad Ramsey's catering service, and he's wearing a hat like the one you have on. He gets inside, he takes off a straw hat. Now, how did that happen? But you see, those are things that most people either ignore or just laugh at. And I just soon have them do that. There's no attempt ever at electronic or technical perfection. That's not the kind of movies I've been making. If they want that, then they were going to see something else. But my movies are designed for people who want to be entertained. And they seem to work that way.
Well, that's great. I'll bring this bit of information back to the castle, and we have somebody on our staff called the Continuity Chick, and I'm sure she'll enjoy that one.
I'm sure she'll find a lot of errors in my movies.
Well, there you go. Great. Anything else you'd like to say on camera?
No, only that I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to have met with you, and I hope our paths cross many times again.
Well, I sure do, too. Great. Thank you much.
Hi there. This is Herschell Gordon Lewis, and lucky you. You're watching Count Midnight. So am I.